This video is a recording of a live event, about an hour and 15-minute webinar, and it's really packed with all sorts of energy healings and information and explorations into the fine abstract layers of creation. I hope you love it. If you do, please like and subscribe. Today's webinar is on sleep and dreams, both ways that we can enjoy and get more value out of the sleep and dream state, and also as far as purification and thank you so much. I really appreciate that. As far as purification and rejuvenation, but also in terms of expansion of consciousness, because obviously there's a huge potential in the dream and sleep state to make amazing progress and to access deeper levels of one's potential. So we're kind of approaching it from both those angles. I'm really excited that you all are with me. I'm going to start with the description of what is energy healing. We'll follow that with a few minutes of silence, and then we'll have a recap of yesterday's session briefly, with always new information, basically, and then we'll dive into today's session. And as yesterday, I think it's probably useful to base today's session on people's questions, because you and we are thinking in very similar terms. So your questions are leading into points that I wanted to make anyway. All right, what's energy healing? Energy healing is using awareness to heal, essentially. And we define awareness as that aspect of our own nature possessed by us, which is profound in its structure, and it is essentially in its pure form. Awareness in its pure form is pure source material. It is that of which this creation is composed at its most fundamental level. It is consciousness. Awareness is consciousness, pure consciousness, pure awareness, pure perception. So when awareness falls upon something, anything, it brings the values of the source of creation with it. So that means it brings resources. It brings intelligence and creativity. It brings wholeness. Above all, it brings wholeness. And because the source of creation is complete, it's complete in itself. And of course, health is wholeness. So when we have pain, the pain is there calling the awareness to come fall upon it so that wholeness can be reestablished. And as the awareness goes and it falls upon that area that has the pain, then spontaneously, the awareness is bringing the value of wholeness with it. And it is supporting the culmination of all the body's healing intelligence to kind of come also. All the specific values of healing potential in the body follow with that awareness. So, for instance, greater blood flow, or the intelligence to produce a shift in the neurochemistry of the body required to help that particular area that's sick or whatever. And what energy healing is about is, so first of all, it's about focusing awareness. Second of all, it's about really understanding the process in detail. Because our bodies, everybody's body is always naturally healing itself. But as we know, sometimes we'll get into situations where it's not enough healing, or somehow the problem is so great, they don't feel they have the capability to deal with it, whatever. And there are situations, obviously, where people don't completely heal from something. So, or die, which is in every situation, right? In the end, we all die. But anyway, but before we die, there's this chance to actually really dig in and understand and appreciate the healing process. And when we do that, we discover that the process of the body healing itself is none other than the process of divinity embedding itself in the material field of creation, which it has created. The divine creates all this beautiful creation, all this glorious creation, and then it enters into the glorious creation. It integrates. So energy healing, we could say, is integrative. It's integrative because it's a process of integrating wholeness into some area of the body where wholeness was not previously completely connected. They have fallen down. Some area they got lost in the idea of incomplete. So that's energy healing in a nutshell. Therefore, we begin these sessions with so many people attending with a few minutes of silence, because it is in the silence, it is in the inward stroke of the mind that we directly access the source of creation. We directly access our anchor to that divine, which is responsible for all this. Not to be confused with God, which is all the divine and all of this all rolled into one great magnificent package. But we are all part of this great magnificent package. So we're going to take about 3 minutes. I will let you know when 3 minutes is finished. And after 3 minutes, I'll say to open the eyes. We'll take a few minutes to open the eyes. And then with the foundation of that luscious, wonderful silence, which is such a pleasure to experience with all of you, we will dive into a review of, a prayer of gratitude, and then a review of today's session. All right, let's close our eyes. All right. Let's take a minute and then slowly open the eyes. Coming out of the silence slowly helps to integrate it. We integrate wholeness into the nervous system by taking our time to come out. Thank you to the source of creation for being everything. Thank you for being all of us, every part of each one of us, all of us. Thank you to our ancestors for their efforts and their contributions to the quality of life that we have today and to the wonderful physiologies that we get to inhabit. Thank you to the eternal tradition of wisdom for creating the connection, creating and maintaining the connection between the unmanifest source of creation and the manifest field of creation. May we work intelligently and efficiently and profoundly today during our hour. May our healing work really cut to the core and promote those essential transformations required to support everyone's ability to sleep better and to evolve into their full potential, to use sleep and dream time to evolve into their full potential. Thank you, everyone, for the opportunity to be with you today. It's always really sweet to be together in this group, and always lots of cool stuff comes out. So thanks for being with me. All right, so that's the introduction. Yesterday's session, again, to all the new people, my apologies for going overtime. I just completely forgot that the meeting was supposed to end at 8:45, and I didn't end it till 9:15, which means the people on the East Coast were kept up past their bedtime, which is ironic because I had just told everyone that it's good to go to bed before 10 o'clock. Anyway, yeah, it happens, I guess, sometimes. I guess that was somehow part of the story of yesterday, but we were rolling along quite nicely, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to answer people's amazing questions. And so I thought a little bit about a few of the points that came up yesterday. And so as part of the review, I thought it would be good to clarify a couple of things. One of them at the beginning, I mentioned a few like really practical points about sleep and ways that we can organize at the surface level, including, I mentioned putting the bed head east. And at that time I said, oh, and there's no research that actually, confirms that having the head to the east or the head to the south gives rise to better quality of sleep. But actually, then this morning I realized there actually is some research, some very old research, and probably some of the folks who are on this call who are involved more with the research at the local university here are more familiar with details of that research. Like, I don't know who did it or when or anything, but I do remember that there was some research that came out, I believe, in the 1980s, maybe 90s, in the 1990s, where people were given complex tasks, and they had to accomplish the tasks, but the brain monitors were on, and they were monitoring the people accomplishing the tasks facing various directions. And what they found was that when a person had a complex or difficult task to perform facing east, that there was more integration in the thalamus, which is the organ, it's an organ in the limbic system of the brain, which is responsible for sorting and categorizing all the information that comes in through the senses of perception, and then sending that information back to the hippocampus, or or to the inferior parietal cortex, where it's like the screen of life. So the thalamus is like the one who kind of receives all the bits of information and decides how they'll be organized so that you can have the experience of this present moment. Anyway, that's what I remember about that research, but some of y'all researchers out there might know better than I, might remember that bit of research better than I do. So yeah, there was a little bit of research on it anyway. It's good to face east, and there is evidently more integration in the brain when we're facing east, which is good. Another point that came up yesterday, the question came about, we were talking about the cycles of the day and the cycles of the body and the circadian rhythms, and how it's good if the sleep cycles are aligned with the circadian rhythms, which themselves are aligned with these sort of natural rhythms in the environment, based on the three doshas. I talked about these three qualities of the material world. There's kind of like a light, bright, like cool, moving quality that's mostly made of space and air. And then there's like a fiery quality that's mostly made of water and fire. And then there's a sort of heavier, more stable quality, mostly made of water and earth. And one lady asked, well, what about teenagers who seem to have sleep schedules that are kind of all over the place? And I sort of defended the teenagers, saying, well, it's kind of the nature of the sort of hormonal fluctuations that are going on at that time. But I thought about that a little bit more afterwards, and I realized it's true that when people are young, they like to sort of explore, like, oh, I wonder what the energies at midnight feel like. They want to stay up and have a sleepover and giggle until 1 a.m. with their friends or whatever. But those should be the exceptions, not the rule. Because the truth is that even teenagers who can manage to keep themselves on a healthy sleep routine, they do better. They accomplish more. They're better focused in school. They're all the systems of the body function more efficiently, and that is the time of life. To teenage years is a great time of life to establish good habits, to establish self-care, to establish a sense of self-love, enough self-love that one is willing to take care of oneself nicely. So if you have a teenager who's having trouble being on a good routine, if there's anything you can do to support their ability, and I would say in this day and age, having a few people in my world that age, children that age as well, they prefer science. They prefer some facts and figures. They prefer some solid evidence to support an argument than just because I said so, obviously. All right. So we talked about these three values, this lighter quality and the fiery quality and the heavy quality, and those factored into some of the healings from yesterday. We did healings for sleep apnea, both kinds, both obstructive and central. And there was a lot of other information. Oh, there was an very important point about the release of stress, because sleep time is purification and healing time, right? So there's this process that goes on during sleep, but it also goes on during waking, of sloughing off imbalances, and sloughing off impurities, and sloughing off that, like even subtle things like discordant feelings and karma and all kinds of influences which are not supportive of one's health and one's life. And the point came up that whenever negativity rises up from the inside, it's rising up for the purpose of release. So at that time, if we see the negativity rising up and we go, oh, what's this? And I'm going to play with it and mess with it and rehash it and run it over in my mind 100 times and compare and contrast with others and this and that. And, if we do that, that can actually obstruct the purification process. It's not to say that purification doesn't come up. In order for us to understand the manifesting process, so there does have to be some degree of understanding what's happening. So it's not to say that, oh, some stress is coming out and I just need to completely ignore it. It can happen that there can be times that say an experience is coming up in your world and it's confusing and you don't understand. And it's not a happy experience. It's uncomfortable. Part of the purification process will be purification of the mind and the intellect. Part of it will be looking at that step, but always there's the element of stepping back. We step back and we observe this thing, and then we allow the infinite resource of our connection to divinity to bring forward the resources and all the procedures and everything required to resolve that situation. But the habit, we cleared that before, but I felt like when I woke up this morning, I'm like, maybe a little bit more of those habits need to clear of attaching. It's that there was some connection between the rehashing of the pain and the discord or the discomfort associated with a particular stress with ego. And this actually ties into another healing we did yesterday, which was a healing for the long, very, very ancient, we don't know how far back it goes, tradition of sacrifice of the innocents. The idea that the great spiritual leaders of all times and all centuries were martyrs. And that when people look back through history and they think, well, what would the great spiritual leader have done? Oh, well, they were martyred, right? At least in Christianity and some of the, far-reaching religions, there's this idea that, the more innocent and the more tender, those are the ones that end up sacrificing the most or something like on those lines. And so this ego, there's some ego connection with that of like, well, I really sacrificed, right? So good for me. I'm better than the next guy because I said something like that, because I sacrificed. It's not that the sacrifice is wasted, because everything we do originates and returns to the divine and is an expression of that. But as mentioned yesterday, martyrdom is not sustainable. Martyrdom is not sustainable. So as the impurities rise up from inside, what we do is, instead of kind of like grabbing hold of them and go, oh, look what just rose up from inside of me, this is gross. Instead, we see it, oh, this is something wanting to be released. And as it comes up to the surface, we bring our awareness back, and it eliminates out, because instead of grabbing hold of it as it's coming up to the surface, we're falling back into our own inner silence. And that creates a foundation for the most efficient release of the stress. And as I described it yesterday, sometimes coming back into your own, as that impurity is coming up and it feels really scritchy and uncomfortable, that we kind of just feel into the body. We feel into the body, because that's kind of like a simple awareness. So it comes up. Just let it release. You can do it. You can do it. Try it. It works. It also kind of saves the psychology, right? Like, to some degree, it's good to learn lessons that we have to learn, obviously, but even the lessons can be learned without recycling the pain. The lessons can be learned without recycling the pain in this way. Because when you come into yourself as it's being released, you really you create a context within your own self to actually understand on a profound level what's happening. Okay, stress release. So purification, stress release. This is what sleep is all about, one of the main principles. And that leads me to a question. I'm going to answer this question, but there's one more point, actually, I want to make. There's one more point I need to make. And that is that even though in this webinar, we're talking about dream and sleep, and in the next webinar, we're going to be talking about something else, and the next one, something else, there's a larger overarching theme for our webinars. This is very important, you guys, because like, why do we even bother getting together for the webinars? The overarching theme is that from a collective position, as a healing collective, we have resources that we do not have from an individual position. And the resources, at least at this time, are rising up to create a path of ascension. They're rising, we're working together to create an opportunity for all people all over the earth to step into a cursus honorum, which is, I mentioned yesterday, but this is the Latin word that was originally in Roman culture. It allowed the foot soldiers, any foot soldier, a clear path from being a foot soldier to being the High Consul of Rome. There was a path, and it was not an impossible path. It was a path that was available to everyone based on merit, based on virtue. We don't have this in our culture and society. In politics, kind of, a little bit. But we need it. We really need it. And on a teeny little side note, whether this little comment is going to be kept in this video or not, the TM movement needs it. Just saying. Just saying. We need it. Any organization that wants to survive in the long term needs to have a clear way for anyone who's completely dedicated and honorable and filled with merit to go from being their first stage to being in their expression of their highest potential. What we're doing in these webinars is we're taking it to another level. We're like pioneers, and we're opening up a pathway for everybody, for anybody, whether you're a meditator, doesn't matter, meditator, yoga, doesn't matter, anybody who desires to live their full potential has an open path that they can take from where they are to living their full potential, to living the highest level of expression of their divine source. And we're all anchored to source. We're all anchored. So why not everyone can do this thing? But the path hasn't been very well defined. It hasn't even been, up till now, hasn't even been identified. So this is also what we're doing. Just saying. Okay. All right, I love you. Thank you for being on this path with me. All right, let's go to these questions. I completely missed this amazing question that came in yesterday, so I'm going to answer it now. She says she's been feeling really awful and in pain when she wakes up from sleep in the mornings. How many people wake up in the morning and sometimes they're like completely exhausted, or you feel like, gee, was that really a night's sleep? Yeah, like lots of hands are raising. Yeah, like that's really common, right? To wake up in the morning and feel like, what the heck was that all about? So all the numbers are in double digits. Yeah, right? So it feels like I've done all this work. She feels like she's been working all night long in her sleep, and her frequency feels very low. And she feels tired after sleep. Mm-hmm. And then she meditates and yawns and eventually feels normal again. But later asked ages sometimes. I'm not quite sure what that means. Later asked ages sometimes. But anyway, please can you explain? That I understand. Please can I explain what may be going on? It's very confusing, as sleep is supposed to be restful, right? Yeah, absolutely it is. So the body is throwing off and sloughing off impurities during the night's sleep. Sometimes the impurities are releasing through the breath. That's why sometimes at night we have like that kind of heavy breath of sleep, you know, that, excuse me, sometimes the impurities are releasing through the skin. And that's why probably another thing that a lot of you have noticed at times, especially ladies, are the body heats up at night, that you'll be sleeping and all's fine. Then all of a sudden you just feel like you're like 100 degrees or something, right? Okay, oh, the number is popping up there, you betcha. So the body is doing a lot of purification, and it's blowing toxins out as quickly as it can from wherever it can. But sometimes I'm just looking. I'm looking with the blessings of your light, your awareness with me. And one of the things I'm seeing is that the lymphatic system cleanses itself through body movement. That means, because we've got a lot of like lymph nodes, you know, in certain parts of our body, that when we like walk or run or something, it's kind of like we're sort of like pumping out the lymphatic system. And that does not happen in a night's sleep. The larger muscle groups are kept more or less quiet during night's sleep. And so what I'm seeing for this lady is it's very likely that her lymphatic system gets a little bit overly full of toxins during her night's sleep. And this is what's giving rise to that kind of headachy, sort of groggy, like not good feeling. However, the other feeling, the feeling of like, I feel like I just did a week's worth of work last night, that's on a slightly different, that's on a little bit more of an inner level. Part of it is the actual physical purification and stress release. But the other side of that is that you're coming up into a place of, I would say, stretching the potential of the night's sleep to support the ability to manifest the reality that you want to manifest and to evolve. There's a tremendous amount of subtle work that takes place in the night's sleep. A lot of this work involves resetting and organizing the inner structure of the field of consciousness itself. You've heard me talk about the causal body and how it's like a big ocean, and it's got these different regions. My picture back here has different regions in an ocean. And so different people will allow certain regions to be more dominant. Just like this lovely island in Indonesia. It's got this region here is like an important bay, and this is another important bay here, and then there's another important bay in this island. And these bays, they define the island. They help to define the island. So also the regions of your causal body that you choose to favor define your island. They define what comes to the surface as far as how you manifest your life and yourself. So that's one reason why we did that big healing for that sort of martyrdom energy, because we don't really want, like I said, that's not sustainable. So, we don't want that energy factoring in with other things that we're doing. And the ego, going back to the ego, just checking in with everyone's ego. It's, I didn't quite finish that healing before. Thank you. I'm glad we're able to pick this thread back up. Ancestral. It's ancestral. It's been carried for a long time. And there's a lot of, when we carry ancestral stresses, we carry neurological wiring that accommodates ancestral belief patterns and habits and tendencies. So part of the story is a rewiring of the nervous system. And this happens in sleep. The nervous system will rewire itself during a day's time. Evidently, 70% of the dendrites in the brain reform or restructure themselves. Well, at night it can probably be, now I don't know this for a fact because I haven't actually read any research on it, but I would imagine based on personal experience, it could even be more. It could even be more during a night's sleep. When the nervous system rewires itself, the aim is to rewire within the context of wholeness. The aim is to rewire the nervous system in such a way that it is a better instrument of expressing totality. It is a better instrument of embodying your divine nature. This is the way to support the transformation of the nervous system in the direction of more and more healthy every time. So in that region of the causal body where the underlying frequency or the energy signature of the martyrdom resides. It comes into the, even though carried ancestrally, it tends to lock into the system at a fairly young age. So again, we're going back to little childhood, ourselves in childhood, in our sleep time, in our sleep time. Little child selves are receiving a download from your divine self right now. Anytime we kind of like engage and exercise our divine self, this locks it in, it integrates it. So your God presence, I use the word God presence, that's a part of the divine that's just like with you all the time. That part is able to move flexibly through space and time, through following the chords of the astral body. For new people, you can look up causal body and astral body on my website, knowledge base. The God presence goes back to little self, and it goes back to little self, particularly at those times when those night terrors, the times of night terrors. By the way, if you're a parent, you can organize that your children do not ever have night terrors by allowing them to sleep in the same room with you. It's a bit of a sacrifice, but it works. And that is an Ayurvedic principle. One lady said yesterday, oh, are there any other Ayurvedic principles? That is an Ayurvedic principle. It's good until they're about 11. Those little tiny, tender, very vulnerable nervous systems can be quite sensitive to incomplete expressions of consciousness. Let's just call them incomplete expressions. Everything's an expression of divinity. Everything's an expression of wholeness. But sometimes those expressions get overshadowed by their own nature, the separation from wholeness, because totality has to engage with the separation process in order to create the multiplicity and the diversity of the universe, right? So there's a separation principle there. And sometimes if the separation principle overshadows the unification principle, you get forms that don't believe in unification. They don't believe in unity. They don't resonate with unity, which is exactly what happens when the body gets sick, right? And then that's why we have to bring our attention to reestablish wholeness, right? So it's a very simple thing that's happening. Wholeness becomes the whole diversity. It comes back to wholeness. It's really very simple. But the download for little tiny self coming from your God presence right now. So holding that little you, especially at those times when you are feeling overwhelmed by some negative energies or something like that. All the God presence is doing is illuminating the spectrum of ego. It's illuminating the whole range of ego. Because aspects of consciousness that have gotten sort of separated, they feel they're not able to resonate with the wholeness energy. These aspects they feed on anybody else doing the same thing. Anybody or everything else. It's like, right? It's like if a person holds a certain belief, then they like to get together with other people who hold a certain belief because they can all hold the belief together and it kind of strengthens it all up. So what's terrifying to a little tiny person is, oh, that's me. Oh, this horrible, dark, scary thing that I'm experiencing is myself. And I'm like that. I'm like, I can't find my source. I can't find heaven anymore. It's really common to happen around like ages 3, 4, 5, around in there, because that's about the time that a person has to like really commit. It's like, okay, I'm going to be in this world and I'm going to be like focusing my awareness out toward the material rather than still playing in the field of heaven. Because when they're little, they're like half in heaven all the time. That's when ego starts to come in. Ego. And I'm different from everybody around me. When they're first born, they're like, oh, I am just an appendage of this creation. Oh, this my mother? I am an appendage of that. It's just So cute, so unified. So this bright vision of the spectrum of ego from individuality to universality, and then the wholeness that sits behind us. That's all. It's so simple. It's so simple. The light of that vision is so bright. It's so bright that it literally transforms that darkness. It literally causes that energy that feels separate to evolve. Everything is evolving. Even entities that come at night, they're only here to evolve. Everything is here to evolve. That's the big story that's going down, is the evolution story. And it happens at the material level, the physical material. It happens at the subtle levels. All right, let's get back to this work that we do at night. Anyway, thank you. All blessings. Blessings to your little self. Blessings to your little self for being the instrument of ascension for those structures in creation that lost their way and lost their connection with wholeness. Sorry, I was going to go on to something else, but you know what? It wanted to go one more leg, and that is to extend the download systemically. Okay, you guys are awesome. That's an awesome move. That is awesome. So through your physiology, through all times of your life, of your physiology now, that download has a moment. It has a moment in every sleep cycle. Of the integration of totality being dominating, the integration of totality dominating over the illusion that one is separate from creation. And that is not something that we're just doing. We're doing it for ourselves, and it's good for us. And I can feel it particularly shifting in the central nervous system and in the subconscious and unconscious levels of our individual physiologies, but also in the collective field, particularly in forms of life forms, which I talked a little bit about more yesterday, which are these life forms who do not have physical bodies, but are also can become gripped by a feeling of being separate. I'm seeing a lot of healing going down. I'm seeing healing going down for people who passed out of their bodies and were not able to come to rest. So I guess you call those ghosts. It's a very big healing is going down right now. Like, this is huge. This is just huge. Our bodies are beautiful. They're like these magnificent instruments, musical instruments or something, that are able to produce specific tones or qualities of intelligence. The intelligence hums in the nervous system. In this case, in the central nervous system is humming. It's definitely affecting, for a lot of people, the lower portion of the spine. Is definitely affecting. We've got some rewiring going on at the unconscious level of the mind for the nervous system as it extends into the pelvis and particularly reproductive organs. These are for all you folks out there who are, even as adults, still being bothered by the feeling of some presence in the night, some presence. That's a restructuring. And what it's doing is it's eliminating that martyrdom energy signature. It's so big and it's going on so sort of systemically. I think what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing kind of and sort of let it go and do what it needs to do, because the divine is orchestrating the whole thing. And we're just, by putting our awareness a little bit more into the physiology, then we're able to make the whole process more efficient. And I see a lot of questions came in, and I have a lot of questions from yesterday, so I don't want to give up my chance to answer everybody's question. Thank you for that amazing question. Thank you, and I'm sorry I didn't answer it yesterday. I just missed it, but I remembered this morning. Oh, I forgot her question, so I'll answer now. All right. Okay, this person's saying, oh yeah, we were going to go back to that feeling of like working so hard during the night. So a lot goes on during the night, and it feels difficult when the strength and flexibility of the nervous system is put to task, working with subtle energies during the night that are just like a little bit beyond one's comfort zone. And this is also a way of becoming strong. This is one of the ways we strengthen ourselves. So yeah, there's something you could almost compare to weightlifting that goes on during the night in a way, but it's like spiritual weightlifting. We're going into those sort of nuanced, subtle fields of expression and of consciousness, and working with those fields to reset and restructure our own relationship with them so that the nervous system will be a better advocate for the divine, so to say. And it can be intense. And a lot of times the work that we do in the sleep time is, like very intense ancestral work or past lives, or the range is very, very similar. And I would say, I mentioned this yesterday, it's the same as the work that we do in the energy healing here. Only when we're doing it here, for one thing, we're in a group, so we have everybody's got everybody's support, which is super wonderful. The other thing is that we're doing it from waking state. So it's my goal is for us to kind of go back and forth between the movements of consciousness and then the description, understanding of what's going on, so that it integrates as it goes. It integrates as it goes. And that feeling of, I feel like I really like whacked myself last night. I really like worked so hard. I just wiped myself out last night. Is partly that the integration isn't complete when we wake up in the morning. So integration means action. That means we bring it to the surface and we put it to work. We put it together with our dreams and desires and our wishes and our intentions for the day. And as you do that, you will integrate. Living life is integrative. Okay. This person says he's been experiencing very little sleep, waking up with a massive headache. This is pretty much the same. But the same person who asked this question about the headache also sent in another question today with some research on the effects of the moon on sleep. And so I didn't have time. I'm sorry, I didn't have time to look at the actual research. I was hustling all morning. But this is something that we didn't really talk about yesterday, but it's an important point, and it kind of ties into another question. There were two other questions that came in about 5G. And so I think it's good to talk a little bit about external influences on sleep and what we can do, what kind of healing we can do for that. And of course, the moon will influence. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Because the moon is the mind. The moon is the mind. And when the moon is full, as it is very full right now, for one thing, if you have open curtains, it lets light in, and light affects the health and functioning of the reticular activating system. In other words, this area in the back of the head is very responsive, very sensitive. That's also where the occipital cortex is back in that area too, right? Which is the cortex of the brain that processes visual information. So there's a sensitivity in the back of the head to light. And even if your head's on a pillow or something like that, it's so sensitive that if there is light in the room that can, especially blue light, right, which is the kind of light that we get off the moon, that can really inhibit the ability of the reticular activating system to engage with the pineal gland, which is responsible, pineal gland is responsible for producing the neurochemical cocktail that allows us to fall asleep or wake up. So just on such a practical level, although you probably thought of that, the guy who asked this question probably thought of that, to close the curtains, close those curtains. That's well known. But the light, and this is, I think, where there's an important tie-in both with 5G and with the moon, which is light doesn't only exist in the electromagnetic spectrum as picked up by the eyes. There are all kinds of light. There are all kinds of light. There's gross light and subtle light. There's the light of consciousness and being. There are all these flavors of light. Sound is so interesting. Sound vibrations, when they move faster, 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 they eventually move into the spectrum of light. The subtle sound on Earth took a shift. I don't know how many of you guys picked up on this thing, but it took a shift about, I'd say 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, something like that. There was such a shift. And of course, the younger generations, the millennials and the Generation Z or the Zoomers and I don't know what they all have different names. We didn't have names like that back in our day, but anyway, they picked it up. They bring it to me, because I have them. They're my children, and they come to me and they share. And it just happened that sea shanties became a thing. But you have to understand, how many people have music in their dreams? Yeah? Do we ever experience music in our dreams? Or wake up in the morning with some piece of music going on there? Oh, well, I see not very many hands are raised, but there we go, there's a few hands raised. As a musician, I've always got some kind of music going down. So, yeah, it's okay. Not meaning to put you guys out to have to hit that hand button. It's okay. The point is that there's one thing to have music going on the actual airwaves on the internet. And there's another thing to have music going on in people's hearts and minds. And you have to understand, there's a sea shanty that came into popularity like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think, is when I first heard about it, just at the end of the holiday break for the kids going back to college. And there are people online who've put it on like 4 hours or all day continuous play. It's like a 1-2 minute song. They've got it on continuous play. But it's not just that it's in continuous play on the internet. It's that it's on continuous play in people's hearts. They're singing it to themselves. And I'm not talking like a small number of people here. I'm talking hundreds of millions of people. Why? Because it became the theme song for a historical event that's going down at the moment. It got reworded. This song from the mariners of the 1800s got reworded for the current historical situation that's going down, whose name I will not mention, because we know that YouTube is a little sensitive to mentioning certain things. The song's called The Wellerman, but it got renamed. And in America alone, there were 68 million people, 68 million people that were tied in with this song. That's like a fifth of America. That's 1 in every 5 Americans. Last night after the webinar, I went online to a certain Reddit site and looked and found that the Americans sent out a call for support, and every country in the world, save for Russia and China, I did not see, but the rest of the countries in the world answered the call. That means this is not just 68 million Americans, 1 in 5 Americans. This is like around the world, you guys. This is the integration of the human collective. And when I say we're providing the cursus honorum, I mean we're forging a path for the world collective to evolve to its full potential. We've been doing these sessions for what? Since 2014. We've been coming together as a collective, right? As a group, and working in our collective to promote the transformations that will ensure a legacy of well-being for our world for all times to come. And of course, long before we were doing this in the webinar, honor where honor is due, the yogis have been doing this for even longer than that. It's a big step. This is a collective step. We're taking a collective step. When the collective is doing this, let me tell you, sleep can be quite a interesting experience. I managed to say that without saying a naughty word. It can be a show because it's like really, like something's going down, you guys. Something seriously big is going down. So it's a very exciting time. This is the time we signed up for. This is the exciting time that we came to Earth for, and we're here and we have an important role to play. And I am grateful to every one of you for being with me and being part of like contributing. We're contributing as a collective, which is the only way that we can talk to the human world collective in a way that provides enough unique perspectives that the world collective can pick it up. It's like we're like the eye of a bee or the eye of a fly, right? And each one of us is looking at this thing, each from our own unique perspective. It's a huge thing. It's a very powerful thing. Anyway, thank you to the Europeans, especially. I got to meet with some Europeans this week and I got to do some preliminary work with that. And God bless you. God bless you all for being with me. And that this is what we're doing. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Following recommendations posted on the site, right, which is what all those recommendations I made at the beginning of yesterday were also posted on my site, just saying. When she wakes in the middle of the night, her deep muscles are contracted like deep in the torso. She body scan, meditate, enliven the etheric body, pray to invite relaxation. Do you have any other recommendations to help relax the nervous system and the muscles? Yes. Thank you for this question. It's a great question. Anybody else having some kind of experience like that, like muscle cramping, maybe in the night? It's really common if you're pregnant. Oh, look, lots of people are having that. When I was pregnant, I used to get it a lot. I would get like these deep muscle cramps in my body, waking up in the night. When I read about it, you know, a woman's body undergoes all kinds of like really crazy, like it's amazing what the body does when one is pregnant. Really amazing. It's like you create half again, or you kind of like double the amount of blood or half again as much blood in your whole body and all kinds of stuff. It takes a lot of water. And I think what happens is a lot of us think, oh, I'm not going to drink very much water before I go to sleep because I don't want to have to get up in the night to use the toilet, right? But the problem is that some dehydration will contribute to those deep muscle cramps. This is what I learned when I was pregnant. So better thing is, if you don't want to drink like a bunch right before you sleep, make a point to really stay hydrated during the day, and this will help. Because if your body's more hydrated, it will be less inclined to go into that cramping state. The other thing is you can use and she mentions here, help relax the nervous system and the muscles. There are two really effective self-massage techniques on my website under parasympathetic nervous system that you can use to activate the parasympathetic nervous system and help yourself, help the system start to settle down. So on the note of drink, I'm just going to drink. Thanks for understanding. That was necessary. Okay. All right. They say Vata qualities are improved. By the way, the lady who's asking this question is familiar with the Ayurvedic terms, and Vata is that light, quick, dry, cool energy made of space and air in the body. These qualities are improved when sleeping towards east. Kapha qualities are improved if sleep towards south. Oh, thank you for adding that. Yeah, I mentioned last night that both east and south are good. Like west tends to give rise to kind of disturbed dreams, and north is just deterioration of the body. But thank you for adding that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense why sometimes older people are recommended to sleep head to the south, because at the old time of night, at the old time of year of the lifetime is much more vata, much more vata. Oh no, actually it doesn't make sense. Kapha qualities of sleep are improved. Anyway, east and south is good. That gives you a few options. God bless you all if your house is like at an angle. I don't know. You just do the best you can. Some of us have a later bedtime due to our physiology. Science found that there are different sleep needs and types, absolutely. In fact, like 200 years ago, it was pretty common for people to have not one sleep time in their 24-hour period, but two. And that there was a waking up in the deep, deep night part of time that was traditional for meditation and contemplation, sometimes writing, things like that. Some sleep more deeply and wake up more slowly, and some are wakeful later and need less sleep. Having followed these studies and going with the later sleep time, that means 11:15 she goes, allows her to not lay in bed frustrated and wakeful and not letting her sleep be more relaxing, even if it's less than 8 hours. Could there not be variations for the different physiological types based on the doshas, vata, pitta, and kapha in timing and sleep? Yeah, I would think so. I mean, everybody's a little different. Everybody finds their sweet spot. Everybody finds their sweet spot. And it's my experience that it is possible to cultivate, to kind of move the body is adaptable. The body's adaptable, so we can adapt it to certain things, and that when the body adapts to something, that becomes the new normal. And if that's what really is working best, then God bless you, go for it. As long as, the important thing is you feel good and your health is in a place of continuing to become more and more optimized, and that you feel good. And of course, as I mentioned yesterday, there are people who live above the Arctic Circle. Then what do you do, right? Yes, this is so lovely. She says she has lovely green plants in her bedroom, actually in every room, because we are in loving relationships. She can breathe out carbon dioxide and other toxins. And of course, the plants thrive on that. And in return, they make clean oxygen for her, which is beautiful. The one thing now, I don't have established verification of this, but I've heard that sometimes at night, plants actually breathe out carbon dioxide. So, and that may only be certain types of plants or something. I don't know, but that might be something to look into. Oh yes, and a lady says you can put, this is a really important point for those of you who have children, whatever images you put near the child's bed, these images have subtle impressions on the child. This is, again, for the lady who asked me yesterday about her teenage son. This is really important. You might want to check, because it's very common these days for teenagers to have artworks that are kind of dark and sort of, it is popular. It's in popular culture, to have some superhero who's got blood dripping off of his gun or something, and he's like popular or something, or some figure from a horror show or. So it's better to put the highest, bring in the highest. So she says she's putting pictures of the universal devas, the devatas, over the bed of the child. I did that too with my children. And the one child who accepted photographs is the most spiritual of my three. And not to say they're all nice people, but my really spiritual child had pictures of gods, pictures of God and pictures of the gods. And he kept those there. He particularly, same as you, particularly this Ganesh. Yeah, it's very special. It does make a difference. And that goes for us as grown-ups too. You want certain influences with you in your sleep time, surround yourself by beautiful, uplifting, high images. It will help. It's a little, seems a little bit like mood making kind of on the surface, but the thing is, everything has its subtle reality. It has its energy signature. And an image of something absolutely beautiful has a very orderly, very uplifting energy signature. And these are what we work with during our sleep and dream time. Okay, it's said that under stress we regress, which is probably true. I think we've all had the experience of getting angry and feeling like your IQ just dropped a few points, right? All of a sudden you're angry, you just can't think clearly either. So there's a kind of a regress when we get under stress. How to get unstuck for some early trauma imprints. Can we program our dreams to help loosen the bonds of fear? The best technique I've found to help for early childhood traumas, which I've also had, is an extension of the exercise that we did yesterday for self-love. Remember, we were doing this, and this is on my website as well. You can find it in the knowledge base and under free offerings. And this exercise where we close the eyes. When you close the eyes, you go into a more quiet, inward-facing mode of awareness. The awareness starts to go in, and we find this, allow the divine presence of you, your God presence, to move back through time and to find that little child who is suffering or struggling to whatever degree and hold that child in a deep embrace. What this does is it communicates the inherent value of your existence. It communicates the fundamental underlying value of your existence to you. And the reason children often have early traumas is because the parents or some other individuals in their environment were unable to clue into or accept their own inherent value, and they communicated that lack of self-love to the child. That's how it happens. So this exercise of holding that child in the loving embrace and allowing your precious, beautiful love to envelop that child and support the child's physiology, structuring neurochemistry that aligns with that feeling of being absolutely beloved, absolutely precious, absolutely sacred, absolutely essential, absolutely essential for the evolution of the whole universe. That communication is so healing. It's probably, I would say, the fundamental, most healing way that we can communicate with ourselves, at least systemically. I mean, if you've got something specific, you've got some issue with some organ of the body or some part, of course, you have to go in and be more like that. But this one process is just so incredibly uplifting. As far as programming dreams goes, that brings us to another very interesting question. Let's see if I find that one. Oh, yes, here it is. So I had this lady, she has amazing experiences. Oh, so beautiful, so beautiful. And she has a whole list of interesting concepts. And one of them is dream shaping. She used the word dream shaping, but she kind of means the same thing. Like, is it possible to consciously, intentionally have the dreams go in a certain direction? The answer is absolutely yes. But you do have to be lucid dreaming to do it. If you're not lucid dreaming, the dreams go the way they go. But if you're lucid dreaming, you can create or uncreate anything, absolutely anything. So she says, like witnessing in her dream, which is lucid dreaming, when you're witnessing the dream, you know you're dreaming, and then able to consciously decide and then go into the experience of it. Decide what you're going to experience and then experience that. What I find in my own dream time is that it's kind of like, in some ways, very interesting to, I mean, she kind of describes an example here too that has an element of surprise in it, but it's nice to allow certain unexpected elements to also come into the dream experience, because it's through those unexpected experiences that the evolution or the expansion of consciousness is expressed, right? So to a certain degree, it's useful to have that control, that sort of masterful control over a negativity. I had a dream during the last week, which kind of stuck with me. So maybe I was thinking it would come up. And so it was that I had been working in this very, like a deep down inside, like a cellar in a very dark, undergroundish sort of part of some building, which obviously kind of represents like the deep, subtle layers of consciousness. And it was very, very dark. And I had been working down there for a while. I came out and then it was like, oh no, I've got to go back again. I'm just, something I left behind, something like that. And I went back and I went down into like a cave that was even under. And when I got down there, I couldn't see a darn thing. And then I felt these two big, like strong hands, like grip my arms like that. And I said, but I knew it was happening. And I knew it was an unstressing and a purification and a dream that represented facing some of the more intense energies that are there. And I said, thank you for coming forward to support me in this process. And the whole thing turned around. It just turned around. Because what? Because what? What is this, my dream? This is myself? And this is some very big, strong, but really like not soft, soothing, compassionate, yummy, motherly, but more like kind of coming forward. But it is still a helper energy. They're all helper energies. So anyway, yeah. And at that point, the dream just evened out. It just evened out. Okay, tapping family archives. Yes, there are things that we do in our energy healing process, which when we do them in dream state are just so well defined, right? Like here in our energy healing sessions, we can sort of tap into the family archive, and I'll be describing it. You may get a kind of feel for it. And I use the word energy signature to kind of help everyone sort of feel their way into whatever the particular energy that we're working with at the time. But in dream state, those feels, those energy signatures, they're like things, right? They're like a bouquet of flowers or something. They become an object in the environment, or a building, or a location or something. And so dream state's really fun that way, because we get a chance to elaborate on experiences that we have in waking state that are kind of abstract and subtle and not very well defined, and then we can like enjoy them in a very nice defined way in dream state, which is lovely. And that one of the reasons that we have these three, waking, dreaming, and sleeping, is that a table with three legs is stable, right? So when the nervous system is in waking mode, it experiences the thing. And then when it's in dream mode, it experiences the thing. And then when it's in sleep mode, it experiences the thing. And from these three perspectives, we have really, they're like three anchors anchors for perception, so that a holistic understanding of our experience is gained. So you probably find those days when you're having the intense sleep and you wake up feeling exhausted or headachy or something, it's usually a time that something really intense is going on. And if it's not going on personally, it could be going on in the collective, which happens to be happening right now with the moon, and there's all kinds of timing things. And I unfortunately can't say a word to you about it, but for those who know, you know. And for those who don't know, you can look up. The song is The Wellerman. You can look that up. official version. Go check the official version on YouTube. And then, but that's not the modern version. That's the old version. If you want the modern version, you've got to dig a little bit into the internet. You have to be a little autistic to find the other version. Autistic people are wonderful. There is a Devata of sleep. This same lady asked a bunch of questions. There is a Devata of sleep. It's called Nidra. Nidra, Nidra. I don't think there's an H in there, just Nidra. Accessing. And Nidra, okay, so the Devata of sleep means that is a causal form of your body. There's an area or region of your causal body that's all the laws of nature regarding sleep. So, and this is what I do if I've tried my other techniques and nothing's working, I do invoke, or I go to that part of my causal body where all the laws of nature of sleep are, and I appeal to that part of my causal body by putting my attention. When I put my attention, I feed it with Soma. We've talked a lot about Soma in other webinars. We won't go into that now, but you can look it up on the knowledge base, S-O-M-A, Soma. And that is kind of like bringing out the big guns. That's bringing out the big guns. If the body scanning doesn't work, or if the pineal gland exercise, which I gave yesterday, doesn't work, then Nidra is another way. And remember, as I mentioned before, the Sanskrit words carry the actual vibration of the thing that they describe. So that just the name Nidra helps you to find your way into that subtle level of your own causal body where those laws of nature reside. And then just reside with them. You just reside with them in a loving and tender and supportive manner. And like anything in nature, if you're loving and supportive and tender, it tends to come back and give you support. Okay. Didn't make the call yesterday, joined late today, crying, releases on the call. Oh, I'm so happy to know it's helping. Can I listen to, oh yeah, anybody wondering, we will be giving recordings of both yesterday and today to everyone across the board. And we'll throw in a few links too. How do we find the song? I will put that song in the links. And tell you what, I'll also put the modern version of it. That means just the words. The music is the same, but the words have been adapted to accommodate the reality that is going down right now, guys. History in the making. Okay, deeply bowing with gratitude. Oh, you guys are so sweet. Bruxism. Oh, clenching the jaw. Okay. So yes, I've also had this, by the way. I had for years the clenching the jaw, and the dentist was like, "What are you doing? Grinding your teeth?" I'm like, "No, I don't grind my teeth." He's like, "You're grinding your teeth." I'm like, "Oh, it must be at night." I'll wake up in the morning. I'm like, "Oh yeah, there's pain because yeah." Oh look, a lot of other people. So good. Let's do a healing for that. I'm so grateful that I've been sort of dragged through the mud enough that I can share some solutions with you guys. I love you guys. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to help. What I do now so that I don't at night is I consciously check in with my jaw muscles when I'm falling asleep, and I instruct them to stay relaxed. That's it. It's simple. I check in, and if it feels like there's any little tension creeping in, I'm like, no, you just relax there, baby. Like that. And anything that you do as you're falling asleep is planting a seed for the night's experience. Oh, you can plant seeds in your sleep. If there's something that's really stuck in your craw and you're trying to figure out and you can't figure out the answer, you don't know what you're going to do, how am I going to meet some challenge that's coming up or whatever, at night before you're falling asleep, you go in there and say, okay, now I need an answer. I need an answer to this problem because it's really got me. And then what'll happen is during the course of the night, your deeper, the subconscious and unconscious levels of the mind will work on that thing and it'll bring you an answer. That's how to have prophetic dreams. This lady said there was this other sweet thing that she said. No, where was it? Oh yeah, Marshy said, the future casts its shadow in the pure of heart, which is very sweet. So, you know, what that essentially means is awareness settled into the source of creation, right? Because that's the resource of absolute purity. When your consciousness is in the silence of being, that's as pure as it gets. So, and as we fall asleep, we have to go through the gap. We have to go through that field of absolute silence, that source of creation field, in order to get from waking to dreaming and sleeping. And every time you switch from dreaming to sleeping to waking, anytime during the night, we go in and out and in and out. We keep going through the gap, going through the gap, going through the gap. So if you put a little idea in there, I'm just going to stay really relaxed. I'm just going to keep my jaw really relaxed tonight while I'm sleeping. Then every time you go through the gap, it's going to like pop up like a little flag. Oh yeah, I'm going to stay really relaxed. And it really helps. I was able to overcome the problem entirely with this thing. And it worked like pretty much immediately. So try it. Try it. You'll like it. Hey, Mikey, he likes it. Okay, what about sleeping with crystals nearby or essential oils on your toe or wrist? Well, that's a lovely idea. My take on materials like this, first of all, mantras, gems, and herbs, which would include essentially essential oils and crystals also, are considered the three things in the material field that are most supportive from the material world of our ascension and our ability to become perfect, the most perfect expressions we can possibly be of the highest. Okay, so that said, my experience with using things like this is that they're basically nature's communicators to our consciousness. But what really makes the difference is the consciousness itself. Because one person might put the oil and it does one thing, and another person puts the same oil and it does something else. So in energy healing, what we're doing is we're kind of going down to the essential, which is consciousness. Because okay, I discovered I heard about this years ago, but I've really been leveraging it like in the last few weeks. That even just putting your attention on a crystal, like maybe you don't have a crystal, but I go online sometimes and I look at these phenomenal crystals. Oh, make a note to send them some crystal pictures. Oh my God. You don't have to own the crystal. Look, some of the most powerful and important crystals in the world can't be owned. I'm going to send you a picture of some crystal you can't own, because it's just like one of a kind and too valuable, and it's in some private person's collection and you'll never see that crystal. Except there are pictures of it online and you can see it. And when you see it, the orderliness and intelligence in the crystal speaks to the consciousness. And it's something, it's interesting. Like I was just sort of playing with that over the last few days. So you don't even have to like own the crystal. You can just, like now I don't look at the picture of that crystal anymore because I know the energy signature of that crystal because it exists on this world. It's like another person in my world, right? It's like I don't get to see my mom as much as I'd like because of COVID. Or my mother-in-law just turned 100 and I didn't get to see her on her birthday. But she lives in this world. These women live in my world. And so my world is richer because they live in my world. Well, these crystals are like that too. Once you've seen them, you own them. Once you've seen them and you grok their energy signature, then it becomes a tool. It becomes a resource. It becomes a resource that you always have access to. Cool, huh? Consciousness. That's how consciousness, that healing with consciousness, it works like that. Okay. Oh God, so many questions, you guys. I love you. I love all the questions. It's very exciting. It's exciting, but I don't know if I'm getting to all of them. Oh, I was going to talk a little bit about 5G. Please let me honor that. And then I come up here and I'll do these for the rest. So 5G, I talked about this on the bonus video that I sent out with the last webinar. So if any of you are on the last webinar, you can check that, Healing for 5G. But this is in regards to sleep. And again, I think this is a little bit also related to the lady's question just a few minutes ago about how every physiology is a little different. So I think some physiologies are more kapha, and they're more that heavier, more stable energies. And so they're a little bit less aggravated by 5G, whereas a physiology that's more the light moving quick, like energy, or even the fire energy can be more disturbed by 5G. But 5G is a manipulated, man-made manipulation of the electromagnetic spectrum in the field around us. But what I have to say about this is, think of it like crystals and herbs or something like that. It has its reality at the material level, and 5G especially, because it's just such a, it's produced at a very superficial level. Whatever's behind 5G is a kind of complex mix of desires to promote progress at a technological level of our world and greed. And it's the greed element that's the problem. So 5G in and of itself isn't like, the whole thing isn't 100% inherently bad. It's just that certain aspects of it have an aggravating effect on the physiology. But that energy of exploitation, that greed and exploitation energy, can be counteracted. And it is not more powerful than the interactions you have with yourself. We did the exercise earlier for your little tiny baby self, right? Your little 4-year-old self who's like, wait a minute, I'm a unique person in this world, but maybe I'm just disposable, right? You have a more powerful influence on your electromagnetic field and your nervous system than anything or anyone else, period. Why? Because when you're happy, your heart beats like this. And when you're scared, your heart beats like this, right? And your heart sets up an electromagnetic field that is 60 times more powerful than the electromagnetic field of the brain, and literally communicates to all the organs have electromagnetic fields. It communicates to all of them how to function. It tells them how to function. Your heart does. Your heart does. And you control your heart by how you feel. And how you feel is based on your perception of who you are. And your perception of who you are is well under your personal control. Yeah? How you feel about yourself is under your personal control. When you understand this and practice it, you will find that you are able to produce your own electromagnetic effects in the environment. In fact, this is precisely what we're doing in the healing webinars. This is what we're doing right now, you guys. We're creating a collective evolutionary effects that make little delicate changes in the subtle field of our collective, of our human collective, to promote the very highest for everyone. That's all. Just, and not only, like, when I say to promote the very highest for everyone, that just doesn't even come from the level of intention, like, oh, I'm going to promote the very highest for everyone. No. It's all based on integration of totality. That's all. Just divine being, which is the source of everything in creation, becoming more and more and more and more and more enmeshed in the material level of creation. That's all. It's like really, really simple. Really simple. And we just keep doing it over and over again. And I'm trying to give you as many tools as I can. So you just do it for yourself. And then you start to, like, become a boss at this thing, because that fulfills that mission statement, right? Divinity evolving itself through us as us. Why else would divinity create this universe like as it has created it? It could have created anything, and it created this because this creation was the one that best fulfilled the creator's intention to evolve. Okay. Okay, thank you. I love you. Okay, once experienced during the night, the body is a vessel or instrument that can help entities or people that suddenly died. Okay, good. Yes, this is good. This is good. In fact, some of our healings today were actually helping people who were having trouble pass over to the light. And then these souls were not able to go to the light, but only if you allow this in your sleep and dreams. It's quite rewarding, yes. And we even can do it in our waking state, right? Because we did it today in today's session. Beautiful, 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 beautiful that you do that. Yeah. Also, for years, I was busy on that, doing this thing. Still occasionally, but not so much now. But does it mean that you wake up a bit more than normal? I'd say when I was doing this like a lot more time, I was definitely having more wakefulness at that time, but I think that over time the nervous system becomes more adaptable and stable, and then it becomes easier to just do it like anytime, anywhere, under any circumstances and conditions. Besides, the universe only lets you do the amount of work you can do, yes, and no more, or at least that's what I think. No, you're correct. I'm sure you're correct. What you can do, because it has to serve that ultimate mission statement, right? That mission, that idea that it's divinity evolving through us. So as long as divinity is enjoying the evolutionary process, then it goes on. His late mother did this a lot and helped people. Yes, you can help. We can, because the healing process is going on at both the gross material level, it's going on at the subtle level. When we're in more of a collective level of our own being and we're helping the experiences, I'm helping these aspects of my environment. But really what we're doing is we're creating a wave of balance and harmony that supports the healing for ourselves on a really deep level. It supports the healing of subtle structures in the field of our own consciousness that need to transform in order for us to rise into our full potential, essentially. And she sacrificed herself. His mom sacrificed herself, yeah. And that comes from that. That's why we worked a lot on that in this week's webinar, right? Because that whole martyrdom scenario is not sustainable. Right. It doesn't help the greater good. But it's all we had. This is the thing. It's all our parents had. So they were just doing what they could with what they had. But we have a little more now. So. His question is, but egoism doesn't really help the greater good, right? So, and how do we get to the middle ground, and how do we not feel guilty? It is the conscious ego that has those feelings and doubts, or is willing to self-sacrifice and all that. Okay, so the point here, and you can please look up ego on my knowledge base, because I've kind of covered this topic. I've covered this topic quite extensively. So I think due to the time, where over time, I think I'm not going to, because I really have covered it extensively. And please spell Wellerman, Wellerman, just as you spelled it. But I'll send you guys some links. Hi. Song, Song. She's asking about, do we think Nidra to access this quality? The question is, do we use the word Nidra like a mantra? And I would say, I don't. But I'm pretty used to swimming around within the field of my own conscious awareness. And so, I just go into the subtle awareness down to the finest feeling level. And I just find that energy signature of Nidra, and I sit with it, and just sitting with that, organize my own relationship with it at that moment, because obviously if I'm not sleeping, that means my relationship with Nidra, that part of myself, needs to be balanced and straightened out. But yeah, I mean, I think there may have been times that I tried using it as a mantra, but that wasn't as helpful or successful for me. But everybody's different, so maybe it will help. Oh, this lady's saying that grinding teeth can be a symptom of digestive issues or parasites even. So yeah, that would be definitely something to check on, if there are issues in those areas. And I believe we have a webinar specifically for digestion coming up. So I'm excited for that. Please include the quote by Maharishi. Can we please include the quote by Maharishi? Thank you to my dear for having given us all that quote. Bless you. Some people feel dreams can be prophetic. Is there a way of making use of this? Yes. So I mentioned that in that you can ask yourself as you're falling asleep to give you answers to things. And certainly that can happen. And you can absolutely get really deep answers, because you're in dream and sleep state. When sleep time is not just dream or just sleep. It's also aspects of waking are knitted into that process. And so what we're really doing is we're looking at our reality from the three-pronged perspective. And from the three-pronged perspective, we have a much deeper, broader understanding of what's going on. So powerful. Oh, somebody else has been looking at crystals online. Fabulous, right? Indonesia. Yeah, she said somebody else gave the suggestion. So here's a lady who's giving a suggestion that you can say this little prayer when you go to sleep. And that, of course, praying was like a common thing to do before going to sleep. Let all beings be happy. Let all beings be blissful. Let all beings live in peace. Also good for forgiveness. So sweet. Thank you for sharing that. That's just beautiful. All right. Woo, I got through all those questions. Okay, you guys, I love you. I went overtime. I'm sorry I kept you so long, but look, almost everybody stayed. Unbelievable. So thank you all for being with me. You're amazing.